You're not going to believe what I heard this week, my friend. I was watching the arrivals board and the crowd outside a London venue. Just a normal weekday, drizzle on the pavement, the usual mix of tourists and dog walkers. And then the whispers started. He's coming back. Not for a balcony or a coronation, nothing grand like that. It was for a smaller stage, a simple event for good causes. And apparently, Prince Harry might be coming back to the UK, alone. No Meghan, no children, just him. A careful smile. The kind of return that looks polite on the surface and restless underneath. And as the cameras leaned in, I caught that look he does, chin set, eyes scanning, and I thought, here we are again. Duty on the outside, but something more private pushing from within. The talk is of something more serious than a quick visit too, a return of sorts. So before we clutch our pearls or pour another cup of tea, let's ask the only question that really matters. Is Prince Harry coming home, or just catching his breath? Why now? And why alone? Hi friends, it's good to have you here again. Make yourself comfortable. You know this little corner of the internet is for truth told softly. No shouting, no drama, just the human side of royal life. We just tell it as it is, quietly, honestly. So sit with me, because this one isn't about palaces or protocol. It's about distance, identity, and what happens when two people start walking in slightly different directions and suddenly realize the path no longer meets in the middle. Today, we're going to walk through a week of small clues, kind faces, and one very old tug-of-war. Pride, silence, dignity, and the long road between a man and the place that made him. You remember how bright it looked at first, don't you? Harry and Meghan, the golden pair, sunlight on the steps of St. George's Chapel, that look between them that made the crowd sigh. They were supposed to modernize everything, bring the monarchy a touch of California ease. He was the wild one turned family man. She was the new energy the royal fold didn't quite know how to hold. For a while they made the whole thing look easy, but life, as ever, had other ideas. Slowly, almost gently, the pieces began to move in opposite directions. Over the past few years, the stories have changed tone. Instead of joint appearances, we've seen solo ones. Instead of shared smiles, separate schedules. And now, reports whisper that the couple are going through what's politely called a trial separation. I call it a pause of the heart. Or maybe, just two people drawing careful lines. Friends close to them, depending on which paper you read, say Harry has been spending more time by himself. Not just physically apart, but emotionally withdrawn, quieter, maybe even nostalgic. He was trying to find his footing again, his own projects, his own voice, his own identity. There's talk of him missing the old rhythm of duty and purpose, the kind he only ever felt in Britain. Friends, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot, and it keeps our little circle growing. Thank you. All right, let's go back to what happened. When your life shifts too far from where you began, a part of you starts looking for the road home. He wrote about what Britishness feels like to him. Pride in service, a certain humour, the sense of being part of a shared island mood. And when I read those lines, I could feel the nostalgia tucked between them. Some reports said he longed to reconnect with his roots, the friends, the fields, the humour that doesn't need translation. He missed the rhythm of Britain, the damp mornings, the familiar faces. Houses change, careers bend, but roots are roots. Sometimes a homecoming begins as a work trip. Sometimes a work trip is the only homecoming you can admit to. And yet, Meghan seems determined to stay where she is. California sunshine, Hollywood opportunities, and a sense of freedom she never had in Windsor. She was building something bigger, her lifestyle, her brand, her next chapter. She has her world designed just so, and moving that world across an ocean is no small thing. She's said to be very upset at the idea of a UK return, and who could blame her? After everything, the press storms, the cold shoulders, the isolation, the idea of going back must feel like walking into winter without a coat. She wants calm lanes, career control, a setting where a day can unfold without surprise. He wants pubs, banter, football nights, the jokes you only tell when everyone knows your childhood. None of this is scandalous. It's ordinary, which is why it's hard. It's about two people with different ideas of how to feel safe and seen. That's where the tension lives. Two lives, two climates, and one marriage stretched thin across the Atlantic. He talks about reconnecting with service and roots. She talks about staying grounded in peace and privacy, different languages, same marriage. Here's where it gets interesting, my dear friends. Harry's recent interviews, the ones sprinkled between charity events and travel, sound homesick, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, aching way. He mentions home in Britain. He speaks of service and duty, words he used to avoid. It's as if the California air, with all its promise of reinvention, has lost its sparkle for him. I always say this: pride takes you far, but belonging pulls you back. And the pull of the old streets, the old pubs, the old jokes with old friends, the part of him that wants to belong to something he didn't have to invent from scratch, that is loud right now. You can't fake the ease of home. When you laugh the way you used to laugh, something inside loosens. That looked like relief. And then the practical side. You've heard about the legal battles, I'm sure. Harry's ongoing fight for police protection when he visits the UK. He's made it very clear he doesn't feel safe bringing Meghan or the children without the proper security detail. The government, however, has remained firm. He's no longer a working royal, they say. The privileges have changed. So he visits alone. Quietly, briefly, with layers of security he arranges himself. It's complicated, expensive, exhausting. If you look closely, those trips have become less symbolic and more personal. Funerals, coronations, brief meetings, moments that tie him to family, but not to life itself there. And maybe, just maybe, he's tired of being a guest in the country he still calls home. He's trying to unstick his image from the glue of constant conflict. He's trying to reclaim his own place in the UK, person to person, charity to charity, cause to cause. That's what struck me during his recent trip. I felt it the moment the headlines turned. Public engagements, a charity invite, Well Child Awards. He was there for handshakes, tender smiles, careful words for families who need strength. That's the Harry people remember, the one who lights up around service, who remembers names, who leans in when others might look away. The room leaned toward him instead of away. Grace, when it's real, doesn't need a crown. He stayed longer than the schedule said. He asked small questions. He listened. During a quick chat with organisers, he mentioned being proud to be British. And there was a flicker, just a small one, of that old spark. He smiled at a joke about the rain, rolled his eyes at a bit of chaos with the microphones, and I thought, there's the boy who grew up dodging cameras and finding his friends anyway. Friends, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot, and it keeps our little circle growing. Thank you. All right, let's go back to what happened. Now here's the twist. There's talk that Harry might not just visit again, but live again in Britain. Maybe part-time, maybe quietly. Some say it's a practical choice to be closer to certain projects. Others say it's emotional, a way to rebuild what he lost. But here's where the silence gets louder. Meghan isn't coming with him. Reports describe her as furious at the suggestion. She's built her world in the States, and she's not ready to trade comfort for cold halls and stiff greetings. Some sources even claim she said she'd walk away if he went ahead with it. Now, you and I both know how words can twist when passed through the press. But even so, Where there's this much smoke, there's at least a spark. Insiders said she was shocked, not theatrical, not storming out of rooms, just quietly stunned. Because this wasn't just about geography, it was about symbolism. After years of carving out a life away from the palace, the idea of him walking back into that world without her probably felt like the first chapter of a new distance. If he went alone, people might start to see him separately again. Harry, the royal son, not Harry, the husband and father. And if that image caught on, that's how separation begins, both in headlines and in hearts. The near-miss moment came. I felt it like a draft, when there was talk of a brief family meeting. The kind where you think, if this goes well, the temperature drops. If it goes poorly, the winter returns. The kind of quiet encounter that could signal a thaw after years of silence. And then, as the day unfolded, it didn't happen. Schedules, health, diaries, you know how it goes. Grace almost returned. It didn't. Silence can be kind, and it can be a closed door. A family meeting that almost happens is almost worse than one that's never planned. It leaves that taste of almost behind. You can almost picture it, can't you? Harry pacing a hotel room in London, looking out over the grey skyline, remembering what it felt like to belong somewhere. Then his phone buzzes from Montecito, warm voices, California sun, and for a moment, he's between two worlds. One with history, one with freedom. Neither easy, both costly. There's a line between pride and homesickness, and he seems to be walking it. He's too proud to admit regret, but too honest to pretend he doesn't miss what he left behind. That's the real near miss here. The point where reconciliation with family almost becomes possible, but still slips through the fingers because of silence, because no one wants to be the first to say, I was wrong. You know, friend, I've started to think this story isn't really about moving countries, it's about moving selves. Harry once said he found peace in service. That's who he was, soldier, helper, bridge builder. But service is easier when you know where you stand. Since leaving royal duties, he's built a brand, yes, but not a belonging. And when a man can't locate his place, he starts retracing the map. Some reports claim he's been exploring properties or charitable offices back home, discreetly, that he wants to be closer to veterans' programs, to causes that link him to his old purpose. And I don't think that's rebellion. I think that's restoration. It's funny, isn't it, how time softens rebellion into nostalgia? Humiliation lurks when you try to pretend you don't miss what you miss. Better to admit it. Meghan, for her part, is said to be focused on the next chapter of her career, fashion, lifestyle, maybe politics. Two paths, parallel for now, but slowly drifting apart. It reminds me of those ballroom dances at state dinners. You start together, hand in hand, and if one of you turns too far, the grip loosens. That's what it feels like watching them from a distance. No shouting, no collapse, just a slow unspooling of grace under pressure. And maybe, just maybe, that's how marriages fade when love meets identity. Quietly, without scandal, but with 1,000 unspoken goodbyes. It's like watching two branches grow in opposite directions, still from the same tree, yes, but no longer intertwined. That's not humiliation, that's human. The question is whether they can build a bridge with seasons in mind. A small inversion happened midweek, didn't it? At first, the crowd's eyes searched for Royal Harry, the one with shiny cameras on him. But after a few minutes with the families at Well Child, the mood changed. They weren't looking for a prince, they were looking for a good listener, and that's who turned up. He builds a circle where grief can speak without fear of being hurried. I watched a father lean in to show a photo, and Harry leaned in further. Grace again, uncomplicated and human. That's the hidden moral truth here. What looks like weakness in public can be strength in private. A solo visit might look lonely on a front page. But in a drawing room, it can read as respect. No entourage, no additional glare, just a man willing to stand on his own and speak. Pride wants a grand gesture. Dignity prefers a knock at a quiet door. He doesn't need a balcony. He needs a chair beside a hospital bed. So where does this leave us, my dear friends? If Harry does return, it won't be the triumphant comeback of a prodigal son. It'll be a careful re-entry, shaped by humility and distance. He'll be the man who once walked away from a crown and came back looking not for titles, but for meaning. As for Meghan, she'll stay where her roots have grown, in independence, in image, in her own sphere of control. Two people who wanted freedom, finding that freedom sometimes pulls you in opposite directions. You can almost feel the pull. The crown on one side, California on the other. Two lives, both real, both heavy. The monarchy has its pace, and it rarely moves to anyone else's drum. But the crowds are their own weather, and they were gentle this week. That matters more than people think. If he can stand there, face soft, hands steady, and remind everyone why they liked him before the noise, the ground will hold. Not a grand return, a useful one. Dignity often lives in useful things. If he keeps coming back for service, the country will keep making room. If he keeps the focus on people who need him rather than on palace doors, the doors that matter will open. They may not be gilded, but they are solid. And sometimes, a warm kitchen with a kettle on and a few laughs is a stronger throne than any stage. What about the marriage? We end with grace. Two people can love each other and still want different skies. The question is whether they can build a bridge with seasons in mind, winters here, summers there. Or perhaps two homes where the children can see both worlds and learn that belonging is a wide word. I wish them the same thing I wish any couple. Less performance, more kindness. The truth, quiet as a held breath, is that a solo visit can be an olive branch and a warning, a repair and a reset. Life is messy like that, especially royal life. So maybe this is the picture I'll leave you with. A corridor at dusk, old portraits looking down, a door partly open. Footsteps, pause. Then, not a speech, not an apology, just the familiar sound of a chair being pulled out. Two people sit, one pause, the other nods. And maybe that's the quiet lesson here. Pride takes you far, but belonging pulls you back. Dignity isn't in leaving or staying, it's in knowing when to stop fighting both. So if you see headlines shouting that Harry is returning home without Meghan, take a breath. See the human beneath the title, a man trying to reconnect with the land that built him, while holding on to the family he built himself. It's messy, it's human, and it's far from over. As always, my friend, check things for yourself. Some reports say separation, others say adjustment. Some reports say this return is the first step back home. Others say it's a line being drawn. What I saw with my own eyes this week was simpler. A man standing in rooms that soften him, a country willing to meet him halfway, and a question that doesn't need to be answered today. Maybe that's where Harry stands tonight, somewhere between two homes, listening for which one still calls his name. Maybe that's the lesson too. Pride never lasts, but dignity, if you're patient, just might find its way back home. The cameras may not catch it, the headlines may miss it, but you and I will know, because truth, spoken softly, always finds its way out of the room. I'll leave a little mystery on the table, because life always does. Was this a prelude to more visits? A careful test to see if the ground is steady? Or was it a one-off? A duty fulfilled, a breath taken, and then back to the California sun? We don't know yet. 10 to 20% of the truth stays unspoken, and that's fine. It lets the heart do its own thinking. If he keeps serving, the road home will draw itself, one small step at a time. Now, shall we top up the tea? I have a feeling the next chapter will arrive quietly, perhaps with rain on the windows, a familiar laugh down a side street, and that look again in his eyes, the one that says, "I remember." And if he remembers, well, so will we. Until next time, take good care of your hearts. And if you love royal surprises, click on the video on your screen. That's the next chapter, and you won't believe what they did.